The Talmud tells us at the end of Tractate Shabbos that there is a zodiac, and each person is born under a star. And one's destiny in life is determined by which star you're born under. All aspects of your life. And it's called one's mazel. That's one's mazel. The Gemara tells us in another location that your level of success in life is determined by your mazel, what we call luck. Whether you're going to have children, that is determined by your mazel. Whether you're going to succeed, it's determined by your mazel, have a livelihood. Everything's determined by that star. A non-Jew who's born under a certain star, his mazel cannot change. It's etched in stone forever. A Jew, through enormous merit or through prayer, one's mazel could change. One's able to change his mazel. Destiny is the same. Destiny is the objective, what you're supposed to achieve. That's destiny. That's spiritual. Destiny for a Jew is his spirituality, what your destiny is. How you achieve the destiny, that's determined by the mazel, under which star you're born. Now, we understand we have two types of devoutly righteous people. You have a devoutly righteous people, tzaddik v'tovlo. A tzaddik where God treats him with all the amenities of life, positive, blessing, unceasing blessing. And you have a tzaddik who's the identical type tzaddik, viralo. He doesn't have a good day in his life. Why is tzaddik v'tovlo? Why is tzaddik viralo? If the deprivation is meant to be the lot of the tzaddik, so why is the deprivation meant to be the lot of the other tzaddik, who God actually provides every amenity which allows him to live a less deprived life? Why? So we explained this many times. There are no two souls which are identical. And each soul has an objective to achieve its level of perfection. It has to meet its challenges. And only God knows what challenges it needs to achieve that level of perfection of the soul. The tzaddik who's deprived, what we call tzaddik viralo, the tzaddik who has a dad, for him to achieve his level of perfection of his soul, because of the spiritual makeup, despite the deprivation, he will succeed. And if he succeeds despite that, despite his limited availability of many things, he succeeds, then he's achieved that level of perfection for his soul. The other tzaddik, God gives him a full range of amenities, because to achieve his level of perfection, it's not to be challenged with being deprived, but rather he needs the means to be an influential person, and he needs the energy and the charisma and the personality and the intellect to be able to go and put the world on fire. So for that, the tovlo is not talking about reward. That's to be able to facilitate whatever he needs to achieve his level of success and to meet his objective as the Jew, as that spiritual being. So whatever a person needs to be able to facilitate and to achieve and actualize that level of perfection, that's what God provides. Whether it's less, whether it's more, or whether it's literally a pittance. For instance, the Talmud tells us, Reb Chanina Mendoza, there's a heavenly voice that comes out from Sinai every day, which announces the world, Kol olam kulo nizam b'shvil Chanina b'ni. The whole world is sustained in the merit of Chanina, my son. Shedai lo b'kav charuvin me'erev Shabbos at erev Shabbos. He has sufficient, a small measure of carob from erev Shabbos to erev Shabbos. He doesn't need more than that. it's not survivable. Hanina ben Dosa, for him, it was sufficient. He didn't feel denied, did not feel deprived. He was fully content. That was his level of achievement. And because of that level of achievement, what did it bring about? That the world now is sustained in his merit. That was the level. So Hanina ben Dosa's challenge was to achieve a level not to feel denied and deprived and have that unlimited level of love for God. Its dialogue was sufficient. He did not want more. That was his level of focus and attachment to God. Everybody has his own. Now, but there is such a thing in this world, which we're going to read in a few weeks. There's the portion of what? Of curses and blessings, which is the closing portion of the book of Vayikra, of Leviticus. So everything is etched in stone when you're born into this existence. What you're meant to have, what you're not meant to have. So how's it possible that if a person achieves, for instance, we say every morning, there's certain things that a person eats the Yusufrucht in this world, is a benefit of the Yusufrucht in this world, and the principle remains intact for the world to come. Whatever initially you meant to have, that's what you have. But you have to take certain action to merit the Yusufrucht and the principle in the world to come. So the world to come is not this world. But relating to this world, we said, whatever initially is meant you have, you have. And that can't change unless you have enormous merit. So how does God give you a reward in this world, the Yusufrucht, which does not detract from your achievement if everything's etched in stone based on the zodiac under which star you were born? This question is asked by Ramban, by Nachmanides. So Nachmanides explains that we know there are peaks and valleys. The world rises, the world falls. And people believe that's nature. People are rich, people are poor. The various levels of what? Of wavering and shifts, economies, shifts in economic status, health, illness, recovery. This is all part of life. People don't realize to bring about every one of those things, that's special divine intervention. But because God wants the world to function in a certain capacity, people see that as natural. That's natural. That's like part of one's lot. Part of everybody's lot is. You could be wealthy, you could be poor. You could become ill, you're vulnerable to illness, but you could have recovery. You're able to make changes. But factually speaking, the way it was meant to be initially, if you would have failed, you were meant to be punished in this world. Because the present world is finite, fixed as it is. It's only because there's such a thing as reward and punishment, a person can be diminished due to his lack of deservingness, or he can be elevated in advance due to his level of being deserving. But that's called Nes. That's Nisecha Shebchol Mimanu. God provides miracles every day for us. Miracle doesn't mean the splitting of the sea. That's something which cannot be denied as a miracle. But miracles, there's always things happening which are not meant to happen. And they only happen because of God's intervention. I'll give you an example. Person buys the lottery and he wins the $100 million lottery. The people say, is that called a miracle? It's not called a miracle. Why? Well, somebody has to win. So someone has to win. This person had to have been the one who won the lottery. You don't see that as a miracle. That's part of what? Just the reality. You have odds. Will you not? Okay, that you're part of the odds. You happen to succeed, but it's not seen as a miracle. That's a natural occurrence. The natural is not that you should become the great winner, but somebody has to become the great winner. So when we say we're giving thanks to God, the ongoing miracles which are continuous. Sometimes, what is the value of failing? Sometimes the value of failing is to learn a lesson. And sometimes a lesson learned well is worth more than the success. Because of that lesson, the future, your level of achievement will be much greater. So that's also, God, when he punishes and he alerts you to your level of irresponsibility and you appreciate that, that is an opportunity, that's a stepping stone. That's a stepping stone to go to advance yourself. But all that is what? That's a miracle, but it's not seen as a wonder. A wonder, why is a wonder called a wonder? The 7 wonders of existence. Of course, you're in wonderment. It's something so out of the ordinary, you're in wonderment. That's a wonder. A miracle which cannot be denied as a miracle, that's called a wonder. And that's what we speak. The ongoing miracles every day. And the wonders and the goodness, which are continuous. That's continuous. Wonders. Some people are not amazed about anything. It's interesting. 7 days before God destroyed the world with the great flood, God did not want to destroy the world. He wanted to give mankind every chance to recover, to repent. Even though Noah failed, his building of the ark and interacting with all the dialogues, God says in 7 days, it's over. I'm going to pull the plug on existence and the world will be destroyed. But God gave them a last-ditch effort. That was God's last-ditch effort. You know what he did? The sun normally rises in the east and sets in the west. The last week of existence, you know what God did? The sun rose in the west and set in the east. To somehow get the attention of the people. People should ask themselves, what's going on? Since the beginning of existence, has there been anything like this? But you want to know something? They didn't even notice it. They were so blinded and so immersed in their evil, in their perversion type of behavior. And everything was so distorted. They didn't even notice it. It did not impact on him. So a wonder could be a wonder, but people are not touched by wonders. But they're wonders that if you have the ability to see it, you see it as a wonder. I'll give you an example. Avram went to the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, which was the most special of the 10 tests, 10 challenges of Avram. He had taken Yitzchak, who was going to be the sacrifice, and he took Ishmael and Eliezer to accompany him with the donkey. His 2 lads with him. It was a 3-day trek, and they come to Mount Moriah, and Avram did not know exactly where it was. But when he saw a cloud, an unusual cloud over a mountain, he understood that was the location. So he says to Eliezer and Ishmael, what do you see? They said, we see nothing. He says to Yitzchak, his son, what do you see? He sees, I see a cloud over the mountain. They're looking at the exact same sky. Yitzchak and Avram see a cloud. Eliezer and Ishmael do not see a cloud. They're both looking at the same thing. Meaning you have to have a capacity to be attuned to be able to see certain things. Certain people see wonders, and they are wonders. And they're taken aback. You're amazed. It's a wonderment. Other people don't see it. Your wonders and your goodness, which are continuous. Continuous. They're wonders. I remember many years ago, my gastroenterologist was Albert Waitman, Dr. Waitman. And then the first time I had a colonoscopy, so there's a screen, And as he goes through your inner part of your body, you're able to see every aspect of that examination. He's examining your colon, your intestines. He's going through everything. And there's a camera and there's a light, and he sees it. And he's showing me, because I was awake, I didn't take any anesthesia. And he shows me that, the food to be digested and for the body to process things correctly, there's a certain degree of movement that has to take place. And the intestines is made of cartilage and skin on the outside, similar to a vacuum cleaner pipe. It has material on the inside, it has metal rings, and that's the air goes through that, and it expands and contracts. As the food goes through different parts of the inner part of the digestive process, it moves. Certain part of the intestines, you have this cartilage, but it's like horseshoe shaped. Another part of the intestines, it's shaped like a triangle. He explains to me why. Because at certain points, it has to move at a certain rate. And other location, it slows down. And that movement, that level of movement is integral to how the body extracts what it has to, and it pushes the waste out of the body. Whether it's shaped like a horseshoe, the cartilage, or it's shaped like a triangle. And he says to me, if you see the genius and the every aspect that was invested in creating the human being, you're amazed. You can't deny God. That God's fingerprint is in part of the creation of the human being. It's amazement. You're amazed. How could you not be amazed? Most people will say, well, that's the human body. The human mind is creative, and you come upon certain insights. It's amazing. Who's amazed? No. The bestseller on the New York Times list, or the one who had the Grammy or the other award, it's amazed. Have you ever seen anything like this? People are amazed about different things, but you understand, that those aren't the things you're supposed to get amazed with. You're amazed with something which is substantial and real, and that makes a difference. And God brings about this level of wonderment to be touched, to come to certain realizations. And God provides it. And we're thanking God for that. Al niflosecha. The wonders, your wonders. It doesn't say wonders. Your wonders. Niflosecha. God's wonders that you see, it's attributed to God. V'tovusecha. And your goodness. That we're beneficiaries of your goodness, which are continuous. A person's not feeling well, and you have a fever. That you have the fever, is that God's goodness? The fever alerts you that you have a problem. If you would not have the fever, God forbid, and that problem is festering within you, before you realize that you have the problem, it may be too late. So the fever forewarns you in advance that there's something that has to be investigated. You need an evaluation to understand where is this going. And as we say, to head it off at the pass, to nip it in the bud before it goes beyond a certain point, to address it and alleviate that problem. That's what it is. Tovasech sh'chol yom choles. Your goodness. Today we study many things in medicine. We speak about gut, the gut of a human being. There's bacteria in the gut. That bacteria is essential for the digestive process and for the breaking down of the foods. To extract from the foods based on that level of that bacteria, and if it's all contained within the body, and it's not something we call leaky gut, you're able to maximize and be a beneficiary of the food you eat. Otherwise, you eat the food, you digest it, it enters your body and passes out, and you don't have the benefit of the food that you eat to be able to be healthy. And that's all determined by what? By the type of bacteria you have in your gut and how your system, the way it functions. This is Tovasecha. It's both. It's wonders and the goodness, your goodness. The way he created the human being, when we maximize on his goodness to be able to function on the optimum level, as long as you take care of it and you address it and you're responsible custodian, caretaker of that body. But it's wonders and it's goodness. I always say, the Rambam writes that maintaining one's health is a Torah obligation. You have an obligation to live healthy. Sleep sufficiently, eat sufficiently, exercise sufficiently. It's an obligation. Why? So he explains, these are the words of Rambam, because you could only have a healthy mind if you have a healthy body. Why is that? Because if a person has ailments and pains and aches, it's a distraction. And due to that distraction, you cannot have focus. And if you can't have focus, you don't have a healthy mind. The healthy mind only functions if you have no distraction. Therefore, you have an obligation, since the life is the mind, understanding, therefore you have an obligation to maintain your health, that there should be the least amount of distraction from that mind. That's Rambam. And God gives us all the amenities within our system that if you maintain the system properly, you're the greatest beneficiary of all the goodness that's built into the system. You have a computer, and they keep advancing the functions of the computer, the different modalities of the computer. But you know something? You have to read that manual, and you may have to be instructed by an expert. And once you have it down pat, you can maximize on the capacity of that computer. The human body, and the one who's the expert, and he teaches his student, says, you should know, this computer, the latest, whatever it is, it's amazing. We're able to do things here which was not to be believed even a year ago, even 6 months ago. It's ingenious, it's amazing, the speed and what it does, it's amazing. But the person who has no relevance to computers, he doesn't even know what you're talking about. You could say the word endless times over, amazing, amazing, it means nothing. And if you're not a finance person, you don't appreciate Tovasecha. You know all the good that's generated because the way this computer stores and processes information, how many people were able to. If you don't understand its function, you don't even relate to it. Its value versus the benefit that it provides due to having all this information stored here. The profile of a person's health, all the health records that in a moment you know exactly what's beneficial, what's detrimental to the person, medication-wise, food-wise. But this is continuous. I remember in the 60s when they shot up the Sputnik. So I remember I was 13 years old at the time, and my Rebbe was a European Holocaust survivor, and we were in the middle of studying Talmud. He says, we have a right to take a break. Because this is such a monumental moment, and over there we have transistor radios, and we're going to listen to all what's coming back about this event. It's worthwhile to take our time to understand what's happening now. They shot up the Sputnik. First time it ever happened. And what about when man landed on the moon? First time. Amazing. What about all the data that was brought back and under different environments, what the tests that they send there, under different types of environments, how things are affected. But we're able to, that God gives you the ability to come upon the way to be able to go out of, break through the atmosphere, to even arrive there. It's unheard of. Well, these people are geniuses. They were greater geniuses in the past, but they weren't able to achieve this level of advancement. The answer is, God has something to say about existence. He provides insights and opportunities that society could advance itself. And therefore we have the space age, or we have Star Wars, to create a shield that any incoming missile will not be able to penetrate the atmosphere, or the Iron Dome in Israel, to be able to shoot down any missile coming in, take it out in the middle of the sky. Otherwise, God forbid, it would be devastating. A level of destruction which is not to be believed. It's amazing. This is the Niflo. These are wonders. This is goodness, continuous. The miracles which are every day with us. The wonders, the goodness which is at every moment. Erev avok v'tzaroyim. Evening, morning, and the afternoon. What is that? It's unceasing. It's to reiterate and emphasize every day. Evening, when the day begins, morning, and the afternoon. Hatov. What is the goodness of God? What is it all dependent? Why is God doing all this? You know why? Because God's mercy never is depleted. God's mercy is never exhausted. We never exhaust God's mercy. You know what that means? The example I always give, person comes, knocks on your door, you're a charitable person, says, I need $10. And he needs it, you're happy to give it to him. Next day he comes back, I need $10 again. Okay, the person comes every day for a year. Whatever person knocks on and says, I need $10. 5 minutes later, he comes back, he says, I need another 10. And every 5 minutes, he says, I need another 10. Person says, you know something? I may be a charitable person. I may be a nice guy. But you know something? This is already too much. You're overtaxing me. Mentally, emotionally, and materially. Too much. God, it's unceasing. His goodness, his wonders, his miracles, his intervention. You know why? Hatov. He's the ultimate good. You know why? Kilo rachmecho. Because God's mercy never ceases, could never be exhausted. It can never be depleted. And we're giving thanks to God for that. Humanly, this is an impossibility. No, you reach your breaking point, enough. You know, on a plane, very often, there's a thing called metal fatigue. That if metal, whatever it is, if it undergoes a certain amount of exposure to certain situations, actually the elements break down. It's called metal fatigue, and it just falls apart. We have that level of fatigue. You get worn down, afterwards you can have a breakdown. God being infinite, he chose that his mercy should be unceasing. And we're giving thanks to God. He tolerates us continuously. But what's that tolerance dependent upon? Because your mercy hasn't ceased to be. It's unceasing. We can't deplete it. And the one who is the merciful one, which is God, and this is even more, what's the difference between mercy and chesed? Chesed means indiscriminate kindness. Even if you're undeserving, God still provides chesed. I'll give you an example. Mercy is that a person deserves punishment. Mercy is, I will stay execution because maybe you'll make amends. You make the corrections. You deserve to be punished, but I'll dole it out over an extended period of time that you still could be a productive person. But you got debt, and you're going to pay the debt. Chesed means undeserving, totally undeserving. But God will provide that undeserving kindness because God wants to provide an undeserving kindness. Why is that? Because since you're the merciful one, even then, lo samlu chasedecha, your chesed doesn't cease. It doesn't come to an end. And therefore, me'olam kivinu loch. Therefore, forever we have faith in you. You know, a person, you can rely on a person to a certain point, or a source of what you can rely on it, but to a point. You know, we say, everything comes to an end. But because of the way we depicted and we appreciate God and know who He is, and He has delivered and does deliver, continuously at all these various levels, therefore, me'olam, forever, kivinu loch, we have hope in you. Our hope is always on you. And knowing this, expressing this, that's why a Jew should never give up hope. God is always there. As much as we don't understand it, God is there. As I always say, God has His own timetable. God is not locked into our timetable. God, but why did it happen yet? As Rabbi Akiva says, Kol David Rachman l'tav David. Whatever God does, He does for good reason, only for the best. Not giving it sooner, but rather later is in your best interest. I'll give you an example. A person just recovers from an illness, and he has a ravenous appetite, and the person wants to eat a 6-course dinner. He eats that type of quantity of food and the type of food, something, before long, you go into the emergency room. They're going to have to pump your stomach because you haven't recovered sufficiently to be able to process the volume of the food and that type of food. Merciful is withholding it from you and giving it to you at a time when you have the capacity to process it. So God is not on our timetable. We're on His timetable. And His timetable is what's in our best interest. So we're saying because of what we've seen and we have a track record with God. And it's proven out. His goodness has never ceased. It's never depleted, His mercy. Therefore, me'olam, from always, from the very beginning till the end of time, we always have faith in you and hope in you because you are that. So although we may not understand at this moment what's going on, but based on the trust and faith and God's track record, we accept it fully, and therefore we give thanks to you for the past, the present, and the future, which has not yet happened.